we dig into horror from the inside out. Not just the movies you watch, but the ones we make. We are your hosts, and this podcast is all about indie horror. The blood, the ideas, the struggles, and the stories behind the stories. Shadows crawl in the dead of night. Screams echo in the pale moonlight. Twisted faces behind the screen. The mask is on, it's a waking dream. Behind the mask, the terror hides. A chilling tale where fear collides. Step into the dark, take a look inside. Behind the mask, where nightmares reside. Where nightmares reside. Blood runs cold through the haunted frame. Every scream calls out a name. Echoes of dread in a phantom's grip. This is the ride you'll never skip. Behind the mask, the terror hides. A chilling tale where fear collides. Step into the dark, take a look inside. Behind the mask, where nightmares reside. The curtains rise, the story's told. A graveyard dance, so dark, so cold. The projector hums like a funeral dirge. From the depths, the monsters surge. Behind the mask, the terror hides. A chilling tale where fear collides. Step into the dark, take a look inside. Behind the mask, where nightmares reside.
All right, I hope you guys can hear me now. Okay. So, welcome to Behind the Mask. And this is a podcast, of course. It's not a review show. We're not here to say things like, yes, that subtext was quite profound. No, we're here for making horror films, screwing them up, fixing them, and then realizing we made new problems for ourselves. Because that's what indie horror filmmaking basically is. It's like, hey, what if we stress ourselves out, but artistically? I mean, we've been doing it for so long for the same movie, it's ridiculous. So let's talk about our projects. First up, we've got this little gem here, A Fetish of Flesh. A fetish of flesh is what happens when you take small town horror, crank it up to 10, and then just remove any sense of comfort completely. It follows a group of filmmakers, students actually, who stumble into a backwoods nightmare where people don't just disappear, they get turned into art projects. Um, The script was written for the first time in 2005. Like, this here's our record. It's 20 years old. It's like a 20-year-old notebook. Um, you've got cannibalism, religious insanity, and people who clearly should have been stopped way earlier in life. Uh, it took us roughly until last year to get a completed script that we were proud of. Like I said, we started in 2005. It was a fledgling idea amongst friends. We wanted to make a movie. We were bored, and we shot it on some really, really crappy Super 8 camcorder that took some little VHS-C tapes. But over the years, we've come to realize that this one was basically asking us, like, how uncomfortable can we make people before they stop watching? Answer, we don't know yet. We're still testing the boundaries. And then once that one was done, we've got Juggalo Junction. Yeah, we wrote this, which the title alone should tell you we were not quite mentally stable at the time. It's about a group of travelers who roll into a dying desert town that's already been taken over by 3 clown-painted psychopaths and their ringleader, who treat murder like it's a live performance. And the town, not helping at all. They basically exist within this little world and don't do anything about it because they're afraid of the ramifications. This movie's basically, what if a road trip? But every possible decision is the wrong one. I mean, it's also like, we learned something important making this. If your villains are having more fun than your audience, you may have created a problem. Or a masterpiece. We're still deciding. Next, Oz. And this is not the fun version. This is Dorothy, but everything's broken, decaying, and deeply personal in a way that feels aggressive. She ends up in a version of Oz that feels less like a fantasy world and more like a place that's judging her hard. She ends up encountering Scarecrow, the witch, all of it, just like in the original. But it feels like it knows something that she doesn't. This one is hard with the psychology, which is just a fancy way of saying we wanted to mess with people's heads instead of just screaming at them. Also, this is the point where people start saying, oh wow, you guys are doing elevated horror. No, we're doing confusing horror. There's a difference. Then there's Last Recording, which starts as, hey, let's document a zombie outbreak. And slowly turns into, why is this guy like this? It follows a guy filming himself during what looks like the end of the world, but the real problem is about what's outside. It's him. And the longer it goes on, the more you realize the camera isn't just recording events, it's recording a decline. This one hits a very specific fear. Not zombies, not the apocalypse, but being stuck with your own thoughts and realizing they're not all that great. And finally, we've got Eviction Notice. This one's simple on paper. Good. A woman goes into the wood to record silence, which already feels like a bad idea. Let's face it. And then she finds out she's not alone, and the person out there doesn't believe in shared space at all. What follows is basically a survival story where the land, the isolation, and the one very committed human being all become the problem. Also, important lesson from this film. If you see a sign that says property closed, that's not a suggestion or a vibe, that's a warning. But yeah, those are our projects. If you're noticing a pattern, it's because we clearly don't like our characters. So let's talk about the reality of making this stuff. People love to say you don't need a big budget to make horror, and they're right. You don't need money. You just need time, energy, equipment, people, sanity, shit like that. But actually, you do kind of need a budget. Because what they don't tell you is everything takes longer than you think. Everything looks worse than you imagined. Everything breaks at the worst possible time. Horror is kind of in a weird place right now. I mean, you've got incredible creative stuff. And then you've got like the hey, what if sound noise. And again, I'm not against jump scares, but if your entire film is just silence, 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 bang, that's not horror. That's like audio assault. And I mentioned it earlier, but elevated horror, which basically means this is horror, but we're going to judge you while you watch it. But when horror works, like it really works. Because it taps into real things: fear, guilt, isolation, loss of control. And those don't require a budget, they require understanding people. And we are really good at understanding people because we're assholes, so we get to find out how a lot of people react to the way we are. And the reason we do it, like, the reason we spend time making films like this is because when it works, even for a moment, it's worth it. And we've already committed way too much to fucking quit. I used to work a stripper pole to pay for my movies, according to my children. But again, this is Behind the Mask. It's a podcast about horror and the people dumb enough to make it. This is not actually an episode. This is more of an introduction. Our first episode will take place Friday at 7 p.m. on this channel, on our Facebook page, on our Patreon, and a few other places we haven't decided yet. And in that episode, we're basically going to introduce a fetish of flesh and go through the entire history. And we're going to hopefully meet a couple of the cast members. We're going to meet a few of the crew. We're also going to dive into how we actually come up with horror ideas and why most of them should probably never leave the notebook. And I know you're supposed to say like, share, and subscribe, but we're going to go a different route. We're just going to say stick around. It only gets worse from here. And that is definitely not a statement that I thought I would be saying. But my co-host is Crow Warner. And if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that it is going to be a fucking trip. So